Okay. Welcome once again to the project management workshop. In this workshop, this is the agenda. We'll be looking at some of the benefits of doing a group project. We'll look at some of the concerns that people have when it comes to group participation in working together on a project. We would look at some tips for personal projects, basically like a project that you're working on your own. And then we would also look at tips for successful group projects. And finally, some of the problems that you might encounter in a project and some of the ways to resolve them. So I speak very fast. So if at any point you feel like I'm talking too fast, please let me know so that I can reduce my pace. And if you want me to go over anything, please let me know as well. So basically, this workshop rather would focus more on the group projects. And that's because like majority of the projects that you would do would be group projects. But don't worry, we would also give tips for personal projects. So we would skip this poll, yeah. So usually when I have a larger audience, I usually start with this poll to basically know my audience, to know a majority of the students on the call, freshmen or juniors or seniors. And the reason for this is so that I can know so that we can know the kind of workshops to present. So if, for example, we have more freshmen, we'll be able to do workshops that are targeted towards freshmen and then juniors, senior, like that. So that's why we usually have this poll. All right. So now, during the course of your coursework, like you already mentioned, you would have to do like some projects. Yeah, it might be individual projects, it might be group projects. And then like what are the benefits of this group projects? One of it is it allows you to build teamwork skills. Now, as you go into the career field eventually, one of the things you realize is that majority of the work you'll be doing will be working in a team. And so by working on group projects now as a student, you'll be able to develop the skills which you can transfer to your chosen field when you're done with school. Also, another benefit to it is you learn how to delegate tasks, you learn how to distribute workloads. Because again, when you're working with a team, you need to be able to assign tasks to other people so that you're able to focus on your own part, right? It's easier. One of the benefits of working in a group is that you're able to achieve more because you're all coming from different spheres of life, you're coming with different experiences. And so if everyone contributes their own part, then you'll be able to come up with something very impressive. So when you work together as a group, you'll be able to learn delegation, which is a very important skill in the industry. All right. Now, when it comes to group work or when it comes to generally participation in a group, there are different concerns that people have. One of which is how do I fit in? For example, like you're meeting these people for the first time. How do I fit in? Some people also, some other concerns are will other people listen to me? Because, you have like 4 or 3 in a group. You want to be sure that when you speak, your opinion will be heard, right? And then sometimes you don't even know your group members before you guys have to work together in a group. So there are some professors that would be the ones to assign you group members, while others would say, oh, form your own groups. So in the case where you're working with people that you haven't spoken to before, there can be that concern that, oh, do I know these people? How are we going to work together? Who will make the decisions? Yeah, because in a group of 4, who is going to be the decision maker, right? So these are some of the concerns that people might have when it comes to group participation. And so if you don't mind me asking, do you have any concerns like with your own projects?
No, not right now, actually. My installment piece is a group project as well, and we're like pretty on track. We have a good plan to get it done.
So in your own case, did you pick your group members or your professor chose them for you?
I chose my group members, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I noticed that when you choose your group members yourself, right, it reduces any content that you might have as opposed to when you are given group members that you do not know, right? Because if you choose, then you
Yeah,
choose people that you're sure would work, right? And not just anybody.
yeah.
Yeah, so those are Yeah, so that's good. Thanks for sharing. All right, so let's quickly look at some of the tips for successful. So let's look at some of the tips for personal projects, right? The first one is use the internet. It's funny how this is very, very simple, but then
Yeah.
some people do not even know that, oh, you can actually use the internet, right? Some people would ask you some questions and you'll be like, oh my, you could have just Googled this thing. So Google is your friend. And when it comes to your project, you want to utilize the internet. It's very unlikely that you're doing something extremely new. It's if you Google, if you use the internet, you discover that whatever you want to do, there's probably someone that has done something close to it and you can easily learn from them. So using the internet is a very good resource in working on your personal project. Another thing is you need to understand your topic. You need to understand what you're working on. So I noticed I'm also doing some group projects and also from the group projects that I've done in the past, I noticed that some of the professors allow you to choose your topic, right? They just give you like an idea of what their expectations are, and then they leave you to actually choose your topic, to choose your data if you'll be using data or anything like that. So you need to understand the topic. You need to choose your topic wisely, right? Let it be something that interests you. Don't just choose something for the sake of it, right? You need to ensure that it's something that you're interested in. You need to be able to learn about it. You need to have some sort of knowledge when it comes to your topic. So if it means that you have to Google it, if it means that you have to seek advice from people that have gone ahead of you, it's important that you actually like understand your topic, because when you understand it, it makes the work easier for you. You know what you want to do, as opposed to having no knowledge and just trying to work on it. Then another thing is you need to set goals. You need to set goals, right? You need to put the most important work first and you need to prioritize it, right? So let me use myself as an example. In my class, I've been told to start working on our projects, right? And this project is not due until the first week of December. Now, it's important for me as an individual to actually set goals, to say, okay, this is what I have to do now. Or first of all, maybe I have to look for journals on this topic. Then I have to start working on my report. I have to start working on this, because before you know it, the time would run out. Before you know it, we're in December and you're wondering where has all the time gone. So you need to set goals. You need to set like targets for yourself to say, okay, this is the whole project, and then you break it down into smaller tasks to say, this is what I will do by the end of this time. I'll do this by the end of the next 2 weeks, like that, so that it doesn't become overwhelming when the due date is very near. And then also you need to say no to distractions, yeah, when it comes to your project, because things can easily distract you, especially if, are you saying something?
No, I'm just agreeing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So especially if the deadline is still far away, or let's say you're working on it and a friend comes to say, oh, let's go to this place today, because because the deadline is far away, something that you might just say, okay, you know what, let me go and do this with you. And before you know it, you keep giving every time you work on your project, there's something to distract you. And again, December is around the corner. So you want to ensure that you limit distractions as much as possible. If it means going to a quiet place to study, to focus on your project, if it means like putting your phone on do not disturb or your devices on do not disturb, just to ensure that you get some work done. I think it's important that you do that, because you don't want to procrastinate. You don't want to get to that point where you have so many projects that are due around the same period and then you have not worked on them. So speaking from experience, for my last semester, all my projects were due the same week, and I had like 3 projects going on. And I'm a graduate student, so for freshmen, for undergrads, you probably be taking more than 3 courses in a semester. So imagine everything being due at the same time. That's a lot of work. So if you're able to say no to distractions early enough, what happens is you have plenty of time to be able to work on your project and complete it in record time. All right. So those are the little tips for projects, for personal projects. So most of the presentation is around group projects, and that's because like looking at the way GVS is and looking at other things, like majority of the projects you'll be doing will be group projects. Now, for some group projects, some individuals will still say they want to work on it on their own, but then most of the projects are actually designed to be group projects. All right. So for the next few minutes, we'll be, let me look at time. Okay, we're still on track. So for the next few minutes, we'll be looking at some tips for successful group projects. At a high level, we have get to know your team members, assign responsibilities, organize the work, understand and manage group processes, allow time for the group to form, and communicate effectively. So in the next couple of slides, we'll be talking about this one after the other. So the first one is to get to know your team members. Now, when it comes to group work, group projects actually work best when you know each other, right? When you know your team members. And it starts from as little as knowing their names, right? It's possible that you're doing projects that's with people that you don't know. So you want to know their name, you want to know where are you from, especially if you're working with international students, you want to know where are you from. Now, getting to know your team member does not involve you knowing like about all their personal life, no, but at least the basic information about them. Oh, you want to know their name so you can address them by their name. You want to know, or maybe a bit of their background, because it might also be very helpful in your project. Like if you have someone that has already done something similar to what you're doing, it might be good to leverage on that knowledge that the person has. So getting to know your team member is actually a very good starting point in having a successful group project. Also, you want to assign responsibilities, right? So one of the things is you want to first of all go ahead. Okay, you want to set up a meeting to get to know your group members, right? You want to know people that you're meeting with. In your own case, because you know your group members already, there might be no need for this meeting because you already know each other, right? Like it's more or less like you're just repeating what you already know. But then for people that do not know their group members, you want to set up a meeting to even know yourselves, right? You also want to and before this meeting, it's good to like tell every group member to say, okay, you know what, let's review the project details before coming to the meeting so that you know, okay, what are we doing in this meeting? So you know, you want to clarify the goals of the group to say, okay, this is what our expectations are. You want to ensure that everybody's on the same page as regards to the expectations of the project. And the reason is because it's possible for both of us to read something and have totally different understanding from that thing. So when you have this meeting, you want to ensure that everybody understands it or your understanding are the same, so that one person is not thinking A and another person is thinking C. That can hamper the project. So it's good that you discuss and clarify the goals for the group project. Also, you want to organize the work, right? You want to organize the work. So your professor has told you this is the group project. You want to try and see how you can break it into smaller pieces. Now, by breaking it into smaller pieces, what that allows you to do is that, first of all, it allows you to be able to track your progress on the project, because you know that, okay, we have done part A, we have done part C, we have done part B, we have done this. So it helps you to be able to track progress on the project. Also, it helps you to be able to allocate responsibility to say, okay, we are a team of 4. Who is going to handle part A? Who is going to handle part B? Who is going to handle part C? Who is going to handle part D? You know, one of the things I realized, especially working with people, is that if you don't assign tasks, it's very likely that the task will not be done. If all of us just come and meet and say, okay, this is the project, this is what it has to do. If we don't say, oh, you take charge of this part, another person take charge of this, nothing would happen. 2 weeks will pass by, and when next you meet, you discover that nothing has changed since your last meeting. So when you break down the job into smaller pieces, you're able to assign responsibilities. And so when next you're meeting, you're able to say, oh, what have you done on this part that was assigned to you? What have you done on this and this and this? So that's one of the beauty of breaking jobs into smaller pieces. Another thing when it comes to organizing the work is you need to develop a timeline, right, for your project. So for example, your project is due December 2nd, I think, which is the Monday before finals. You want to say, okay, what are we going to do for this first week? So you want to first of all look at the project task, say, okay, when can we finish this? This is going to take us 1 week. You want to put a timeline to it to say this should be done by October by November 5th, for example. You want to also look at another part of the project. When do we think this can be done? You want to look at everything. And you want to also look at, so when you're also breaking out your tasks, you want to look at tasks that are dependent on each other and do them first. So you know how you have, let's say you have task A, B, C, and then B is dependent on A. You want to first of all complete A before doing B, because you know that you cannot start B until you have completed A. So these are some of the things that you realize when you actually break down your tasks, right? So you want to develop a timeline to say, okay, we want these different parts of this task to be completed on this day, this day, this day. You want to also specify what is the format of the tax. Is it going to be a small report? Is it going to be a chart? Is it going to be a code if you are into programming? Yeah, so you want to decide on all this. You also want to decide on who is responsible. Don't forget, it's also important that you assign responsibility, because no matter how beautiful your plan is, no matter how wonderful your idea is, if nobody is accountable for it, it's very likely that it would not work, or you will discover that in a group of 4, maybe just one person will be doing the whole work, and that would not be fair to that person actually. So that's why you want to do this. Now, when you're organizing your tasks, you also want to look at your syllabus. It's very important that you look at your syllabus and you also look at the project guideline to determine your due dates. So it's not enough for you to just say, okay, this is the timeline. You want to also ensure that it's in line with your syllabus, because sometimes like projects have different parts. So let me give you an example. Last semester, I did a project where I think the first thing we had to do was to submit a proposal. And then after submitting the proposal, we had to submit a progress review report. And then before we eventually submitted the project and the code, right? And they had different due dates. So while you're planning your tax, you want to also ensure that you're looking at these dates, you're looking at these dates so that you don't miss out on important timelines, because the total score on your project will be dependent on all these other factors that your professor has put in the syllabus. If you miss them, right, you might not get the full grade for the work done. Like I already said, right, which cannot be overemphasized, you need to determine when will this task be completed, when will the project be submitted. If the project is due on December 2nd, do you want to submit it on the due date? Do you want to submit it a few days before? You need to decide on all this when organizing the work of the project. Also, you want to understand and manage the group process, right? You want to ensure, like I saw this somewhere and I thought to include it. It says group work best if everyone has a chance to make strong contributions to discussions at meetings and to the work of the group projects. Now, what you see is that when you go to a gathering of people, there are different types of people that you meet, right? There are some people that are generally speakers, there's this thing called temperament. They usually refer to them as sanguine. They are very loud. When you're in a meeting with them, you would know, because they would always have something to say, right? They would always contribute. And then we have people that are a bit reserved, right? They would not contribute. It's not because they don't know what to say, it's just their nature. So when you have a group project, you want to ensure that everyone is given enough room to contribute, right? You don't want people that will be there to intimidate others, right? You want to ensure that everyone is given enough room to contribute, right? And also you want to allow people to be able to make decisions, right? So it says at the beginning of each meeting, decide what you expect to have accomplished. So when you meet, right, that's another thing. Personally, I like when we have an agenda, right? Just like how I showed the agenda at the beginning of this meeting. When you meet, you want to have like an agenda. What are we talking about? How long is this meeting going to last? Because time is precious. Time is money, right? There's this in this to say time is the currency or something, I've forgotten, but time is actually very precious. You don't want to waste people's time. So when you meet together to discuss, you need to agree, what are we talking about, right? What do we intend to gain by the end of this meeting? And then you want to designate who would be recording the decisions, because again, it's a group of people, everybody's talking. Somebody has to be taking notes of all these points that are being made, right? So that you're not just talking into the air and then there is no record that shows that, okay, we actually agreed to do this, to do this. So you want to designate someone that would record the group decisions, right? And then also you want to, at the end of the meeting, you want to ensure that you leave enough time to check on people. Oh, how are you doing on the part assigned to you? Do you need my help? How can I help you? Is it becoming too much? Because don't forget that that's not the only project you're probably doing this semester. You probably have like 3 or 4 or 5, depending on the courses you're taking. So you want to ensure that everybody's able to, pull their weight, everybody's able to contribute. And if someone needs additional help, you want to be able to provide the help if possible early enough, right? So that's why you also want to check in on your team members to ensure that everything is going well and they're not also feeling overwhelmed, because it can be very overwhelming when you have a lot to do and it feels like you don't have enough time. So it's good that you check in on your teammates. Also, you need to allow time for the group to form. Now, again, except if we're deceiving ourselves, when human beings work together, there will be some form of conflict, right? There will be some form of disagreement. We will not always see eye to eye. We will not always agree. So we need to be able to know how to work through disagreements, because if you have prolonged disagreement, it can affect the project, it can affect us meeting our deliverables. So we want to ensure that we are able to work through the disagreement, we are able to address them as soon as possible and move on, right? Keeping the end goal, which is our project, in mind, right? Or again, you want to allow people to be able to express themselves, to be able to voice out their concerns, and also to contribute. And then also you want to ensure that everyone feels included, feels like they belong to the group and they're not just, pushed to the side. So that's also something that you have to do. And then also when it comes to conflict, so in a case where you're working with somebody and then maybe the conflict has nothing to do with the project, you want to look for ways to set that aside and don't just ensure that you work on delivering the project. Okay, we're still on track of time. All right, you want to communicate effectively. Clear communication is very, very important. It's very, very important in any project, in any gathering of people. It's very important that you communicate, right? And you want to ensure that what you said is also, not to ensure that there's actually clear understanding of what has been communicated. It's one thing for me to say something to you, it's another thing for you to actually understand what I've said in the way I intended to. So you want to ensure that that's happened so that the group can be able to function productively. And then also another thing is when you're making contributions, ensure that you're speaking from your own perspective and not assuming, right? You want to ensure that you reduce the assumptions and speak from your perspective. All right, what are some of the problems that we see when people work together, right? When people work together, one of them is floundering, and it basically means that it's when there's like confusion, when people are still figuring out what needs to be done, what their role is in the group. So there's some form of confusion. Now, one of the ways to address that is to discuss, right? You want to discuss your concerns, right? You want to ask questions like, oh, so this is what I think we are saying. Is that what you're saying? Right? And then let the person explain what they're actually saying. So basically, communication would help clear any confusion or any doubts that may arise when it comes to working together as a group. Right. Also, it's possible, right? One of the things we see when it comes to group working together in a project, in a group, is that we have different types of participants. Some are dominating, they want to show that they want to like be in charge. Some people are very dominating, and it might not just be that they're bad people, it might just be that's how they are. And then we also have people that are very, very reluctant, right? Some people you have to actually push them for them to actually make a contribution. So I think that one of the ways to address this is to make people realize the importance of everyone's contribution. There's a popular saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. But then if you want to go far, go together. So you want to be able to do much together. So I think it's important for everybody to know how their actions or inactions can either positively affect the project or negatively affect it. You also want to encourage participation from everybody. So you want to say, for example, what do you think? You want to look people in the eye and then ask them for their opinions on the project. Because sometimes, the person that might be reluctant might even have the best ideas or might even have the solution to the problem. So you want to ensure that everybody feels included. And then digression. Now, that's also something that happens. We all have beautiful ideas. Sometimes when you meet to talk, to discuss the project, there are different things that can come up, especially among friends, right? When your group members are your friends, that's when you remember something, the game that you watched yesterday. That's when you remember that, oh, today's Halloween, for example, maybe you have a Halloween party you want to attend. And before you know it, you have digressed from the entire reason for meeting the minutes sorry, you have digressed from the entire reason for meeting in the first place. So one of the ways is you always need to review the meeting agenda, right? And for everything on the agenda, you want to assign time to them. So let's say we're meeting from 5 to 6. I want to say from 5 to 5:05, pleasantries. From 5:05 to 5:10, want to review work done. From 5:10 to 5:20. So you want to assign time to it. And then you also want to assign someone that will be responsible for ensuring that you don't digress unnecessarily. And then also it's possible that you might get stuck on the project, right? Because again, projects can be sometimes you might just get to that brick wall when it comes to the project. So you want to take a break. Now, if you need to clear your head, if you need to, do something else for a few minutes, or you want to probably change your focus. Sorry. Another beauty of working together as a group is that you're able to share, you're able to share some of the challenges that you're facing, and hopefully you have people in your team that are able to resolve them. Also, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. So you want to take breaks if necessary, and then you have fields. So that's the conflict. Yeah, it's possible. Again, we are human beings, right? We would always would at some point step on each other's toes, right? We don't think the same way. We have different backgrounds, and as a result, like things there is bound to be conflicts, right? So one of the ways is you want to address conflicts as soon as possible. Don't let it linger so that it doesn't affect the overall outcome of the project. Right. There was a slide I was going to include, which I for some reason I didn't. So I was going to include a slide on some of the resources that you can use in your projects. One of them is your professor's office hours. A lot of professors have office hours that I think that you should utilize because they are there to help you, right? They're there to provide guidance, especially when you feel like you're stuck or when you need clarity on something. I feel like going to them might just save you the time you would have spent trying to figure it out on your own. Now, I'm not encouraging laziness, but then it's important that you know that these people are there to also help you. Then another resource I was going to mention is the Writing Center. The Writing Center is there to help you with writing needs. So let's say, for example, for most of your projects, at some point, you probably have to do like present a project report. So the Writing Center can be a good resource if you're having trouble coming up with your report or maybe writing in general. They are there to help you. All right. So if you don't mind, are there some of the tips you would like to share that's helped you or is currently helping you with your group projects?
I usually lots of the times just lots of clarification as well. Like you making sure the communication is clear is like a good way to make sure that like you're on track. Because if you guys aren't communicating well, you guys could be like almost like progressing backwards almost. Like you're not, it's just not effective that way. Lots of like wasted energy.
Yeah, I agree. Communication plays a very, very important role in presenting in working together as a group. And I think in life generally, anything that involves more than one person, you need to ensure that you communicate clearly and then the person understands what you're actually saying in the way that you intend. Yeah. So that's it for today. Thank you. I was going to ask, do you have any questions for me?
Mhm. No, not really. I mean, for the student, the SAR,
Mhm.
um, is this also kind of like what the writing center is kind of like, is this like something that I can like drop into and like ask people for like help on certain projects or?
Oh no. So for help on certain projects, I think the writing center rather would be your best bet. But then if it comes to, let's say you have issues, maybe planning your project tasks, or you've not even started on your project, you're finding it very hard to start, you're having issues managing your time, yeah, you can always drop in at the SAR office and schedule an appointment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. Thank you so much, Isaac, for your time. Thank you for joining us today, joining me today.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your day and weekend.
All right, you too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.